Hello, players and spectators alike. Welcome back to another Tale of Two Dragons and Beyond video. Today's video, I am going to go ahead and make the recap for everything that has happened so far in the original 7 sessions of A Tale of Two Dragons, and a little bit of content to connect the campaign to what is currently happening or going to be happening when we record the new session 1. Uh, so I've gone ahead and typed all of these up, and they will display on screen, and I'm going to be reading them off of the screen just just as there's an audible aspect in case people are watching this more as a podcast than a video, uh, but it will also be on screen if you want to read it instead of listen to me speak it. Uh, just a reminder, we have not kind of set a finite date for when we're starting yet. As of recording this, I'm still working with the players, try to figure out everything. They are making very in-depth backgrounds this time around, so we're trying to make sure we have all the details straight before we get started. And I am still deciding on if I'm adding a 4th player or not, so things are still kind of up in the air at the moment. But we are hoping to start very soon, so look forward to that. So with that being said, let's get into the recaps. So session 1, the party met up at the Stonehill Inn in Phandelver, and they decided to set out on some adventures together after sharing a meal and learning about some possible treasure stowed away south of Canterbury, which is to the east of them. The party went over to the Townmaster's Hall and accepted 3 quests, and decided to go ahead and gather gear for their adventure. They also have learned that there has been dragon sightings in the area that has brought fear to the people of the small mining town. That would be because the town does not have a proper guard. After making sure that they have enough rations and deciding to try to save some money by hunting, they bought some traps, but they realized that they could not afford a bow. They didn't have enough gold. So they set out for adventure, traveling approximately 7 miles on foot south of Phandelver, where they encountered the location of their first quest, a stone windmill, home of the local midwife and an acolyte of Shantae named Adabra Gwen. Their quest was to urge Abra to return to Phandelver, where she will be safer from the dragon, since she lived in this windmill alone. But upon arriving at Adabra's windmill, known as Umbridge Hill, the party encountered a manticore attempting to break down this front door. After rolling initiative, session 1 came to a close. Proceeding to session 2, the party came up with a plan to engage the manticore peacefully. The party got into position to defend themselves in case things went awry. Oxfelt then converses with the manticore and attempts to convince the manticore to hunt food in the Neverwinter woods instead of the people in the surrounding area. The manticore reveals that the Neverwinter woods are surrounded by magic and he doesn't want to hunt there. Oxfelt then attempts to convince the manticore to seek a body of water to hunt near. The manticore agrees, but will only let the party and Adabra live under the condition that they bring enough meat, raw meat, not rations, to sustain the manticore within the next 2 mornings, and Adabra is not to be removed from her house. The party decides to head off for the Dwarven ruins after agreeing to these conditions, to carry out another quest in the meantime, while also looking for some hunting grounds. While preparing to leave Umbridge Hill, they see a white dragon circling Phandelver and fly off with something in its talons, It's too far away to tell quite what it was. Uh, they then head towards the dwarven ruins, and along the way, Balkanor attempts to play a sea shanty on his violin. It didn't go that well. They arrive at the dwarven ruins to find exactly that, what appears to be an old settlement in ruins. Proceeding further inside, they find a temple facade hewn into the cliff face, as well as two dwarves. After informing the dwarves of the dragon lurking in the area, the dwarves ask for some assistance in clearing out the inside of the temple in exchange for some magical talking rocks. The party agrees, and they enter the temple. The party was then met by two jelly-like enemies called ochre jellies. Askel, in an attempt to defeat the jellies, wound up throwing his long sword across the room, and then he has to resort to using his mace. During the fight, one of the jellies splits into two smaller jellies when it was hit by Oxvelt's great axe. Balkanor got knocked out, and Askel got smacked around pretty good. Oxvelt picks up Askel's longsword, returns it to him. Askel then proceeded to split one of the smaller jellies into two even smaller jellies with his longsword. Oxvelt cleaves through three of the jellies on a critical hit, killing a lot of the jellies. At some point, Balkanor was revived, and in the middle of combat, Session 2 came to a close. On to Session 3. Oskel then dropped his mace across the room in the opposite direction, and Oxvelt killed the remaining jellies and then returned the dropped mace to Oskel. Balkanor recovered from being unconscious. He disengaged and moved away from the jelly, which gave Lumen a little bit more protection. And Oxvelt successfully kills the last remaining jelly. After combat concluded, the party investigates the altar in the temple. After informing the dwarves, they found nothing with the altar. After informing the dwarves that the jellies had been defeated, the dwarves inform the party that they believe the temple should be bigger, but they do still reward the party with the sending stones, those magical talking rocks. After being informed of some noise coming from outside the temple, Lumen and Oxvelt go to investigate. Oxvelt determines that there are some orcs blocking the mouth of the valley, which is the only way in and out of this temple. They return to the rest of the party, and after Oxvelt informs the party of his findings, they decide that they're going to spend the night in the temple. It was getting pretty late after all. While the party is getting ready for their rest, the dwarves continue searching the main chamber. The dwarves find a secret door and another jelly hiding in the passage. Oxvelt and Balkanor, with Lumen's help, break the altar free from the base and use it to block the secret door that was found, to prevent the jelly from getting them while they sleep. Upon getting the altar in place, the two dwarves each find another secret door, totaling 3 secret doors in this main chamber, and there was one open secret door in the entryway. The party convinces the dwarves to stop seeking for more doors. At this point, this also created the change in names of D&D from Dungeons and Dragons to Dwarves and Doors for this session, or for this campaign. After a long rest, the party decided to take on the jelly that was found in the secret passageway. After rolling initiative, Session 3 came to a close. Session 4 starts out with the party quickly dispatching the jelly in the back corridor by flanking it, and the party is ready to leave. They reach the mouth of the valley, and they are met with the same orcs that were there last night. After engaging in combat with the orcs, the party gets roughed up a little bit, but they quickly kill the orcs with ease as well. Afterwards, the party has leveled up to level 2. After traveling a half a day's journey, the party arrives back in Phandelver. They go and they visit Townmaster Harbin Wester at his home, which he refuses to leave with the dragon around. The party receives 50 gold pieces as a reward for completing their first quest. However, Harbin Wester passes it one coin at a time under the door, because he's not going to open the door to hand them the whole bag. The party heads around town, attempting to purchase fresh meat. They are able to purchase about 20 pounds of raw, fresh meat from the Stonehill Inn. After acquiring the meat, the party heads back to Umbridge Hill in preparation for the meeting with the Manticore. Oxvelt attracts the Manticore to finish the deal. After cooking a feast, Oxvelt serves most of the food to the Manticore and keeps some for the party. With the deal fulfilled, the party escapes with their life and is now allowed to take Adabra back to Phandalin. They decide to spend the night at the windmill, and the party then escorts Adabra back to Phandalin in the morning. When they arrive back at Phandalin in the morning, they head back to Harbin Wester's home to receive their quest reward of 25 gold pieces this time. Again, one coin at a time under the door. After successfully escorting Adabra back to town, the party has now leveled up to level 3. Balcanor and Lumen find out that someone was snatched the other day by the dragon. It's probably what they saw. Oxvelt and Askel visit the Lion Shield Coster. Oxvelt sells some of the weapons that he took from the orcs, while Askel decides to buy a short bow. The party then heads back to the Stonehill Inn. Askel heads to Barthen's Provisions to buy a quiver and some arrows, while the party grabs some lunch and drinks at the Stonehill Inn. And that is where Session 4 ended. When Session 5 started, after having lunch at the Stonehill Inn, the party went to check the Town Master's Hall to see if any new quests had been posted. They see that there is one new quest, but it leads out of the north of Phandalin. The rest of their quests head south. So they decide to leave it on the quest board for now and head off on their current quest. After traveling for a few hours and passing back past Umbridge Hill, they follow a stream leading up into the mouth of the cave known as Namengrad. Upon entering the cave, they find a variety of different colored mushrooms in this pond under a waterfall. Meanwhile, Lumen and Askel notice some rock gnomes in one of the smaller cave openings. Oxvelt and Balcanor and Lumen decide to climb up that cliff face, where they find some sleeping rock gnome recluses. Further into the cave, they encounter 2 more rock gnome recluses tinkering about. After these 2 gnomes have been notified about the white dragon in the area, the party asks if they have anything to combat the dragon with. The gnomes offer rewards in the form of magic, but only if they can help calm down their kings. One of the kings has kind of gone a little stir crazy and kidnapped the other one, and they're locked in their bedroom at this point. Meanwhile, while Askel is exploring the other side of the caves, he discovers a dining area and a kitchen, and discovers the uses for the mushrooms that were growing in the pond. The rest of the party, after talking with the kings, finds out that 2 gnomes have disappeared in the last 10 days as a result of a shape changer, and one of the kings was attacked by this said shape changer while it was disguised as a door. The party decides to gather all of the gnomes in one place so that they can search the entire cave for this shape changer. Lumen goes off to find Askel so that they can hunt down this creature, while Oxvelt and Balcanor discover a room with some spinning blade contraptions, and turns them off. While that was happening, though, Askel found a room with a mechanical crab-like contraptions. Exploring further, he also found a weird spinning contraption with crossbows on it, and it was being controlled by a gnome, who shot at Askel as soon as he entered. Askel was able to evade the contraption and continued on his explorations. Askel also noticed that his skin had turned a vibrant shade of blue for seemingly no reason. Oxvelt and Balcanor exit the room with the blades and cross a rope bridge which passes very close to the waterfall, and they enter the opposite side of the cave. Lumen also enters the opposite side of the cave in search for Oscal by crossing the stream. After meeting up with Oscal, Lumen notices that Oscal's skin is blue and is slightly concerned. Oscal, after learning of what the party's intentions is, then jumps off one of the cliffs into the pond area where all of the gnomes are gathering. And that is where session 5 ended. Session 6 starts off with Oxvelt and Balkanor continuing to explore the cave system in search of Oscal when they come to a room filled with 12 barrels. Since a few of them are tapped, Balkanor decides to determine what is in the barrels, and comes to the conclusion that it is purple wine made from mushrooms. After finding this out, they decide to continue further into the cave system, where they find Lumen standing atop a cliff leading into the mushroom area. After finding out that Oscal has jumped down off the cliff, Oxvelt decides to head back into the barrel room because he is suspicious of just how many barrels are in there. After approaching one of the barrels and poking it to make sure it's real, the barrel bites him. He's found the shape changer. After becoming enraged at this, Oxvelt let out a roar loud enough for Lumen and Ascal to hear, even over the sound of the crashing waterfall. Oxvelt also calls upon the primal magic of the sea to unleash lightning upon this mimic. Balkanor attempts to conjure acid at this monstrosity, but it doesn't work out. He decides it's probably best to just make sure that this thing can't hurt Oxvelt anymore. Casting Shield of Faith onto Oxvelt, Balkanor then grows butterfly-like wings, and he can now fly. Lumen attempts to help Oscal climb up the cliff, but it takes a couple attempts. But Oscal does successfully make it back up the cliff. Meanwhile, Oxvelt is laying into this mimic with his great axe, after it decided to revert to its true form. Balkanor then attempts to conjure some divine light at the mimic, and he missed with that as well. Oxvelt continues to smack around this mimic with its great axe after getting bitten again. When Lumen and Ascal finally make it into the room with all the barrels, they see that Balkanor is healing Oxvelt. After the mimic fails the... What? I don't know what that's supposed to be. The mimic tried to do something, and Oxvelt delivered a killing blow. After killing the mimic, Lumen and Oscal head off to inform the kings that the problem has been solved, while Balkanor and Oxvelt prepare to perform a show. Oxvelt is able to sing perfectly during this performance, while Balkanor still can't figure out how to play rock or metal songs on his violin. After the performance is over, Balkanor decides to conjure radiant flames and destroy his violin out of frustration, and for not understanding how to play the wrong songs on it. During the performance, Lumen and Ascal were able to convince the crazed king that the mimic has been vanquished, and the crazed king finally lets the other king go from the chair it was glued to. After the performance, the kings address the kingdom and inform them that they are no longer hiding in their room, and that they will go back to ruling the kingdom. Ascal grabs the attention of one of the king that was glued to the chair, and is informed that his skin being blue, and that Balkanor's wings are a result of using magic while inside the cave system. Ascal then inquires about the book that was on the pedestal in one of the chambers, and learns that it is a wizard's spell book. Ascal beckons Oxvelt and Balkanor to join them in the western cave. The entire party regroups in the chamber with the wizard's spellbook. And session 6 ends with the party expecting to receive rewards from both the kings and the initial 2 gnomes that they talked to. When session 7 starts, the party enters the throne room and hears one gnome throwing things in a room not too far. It seems as though they're searching for something. When that gnome returns, the party is then bestowed with 4 magical items. Lumen, the wizard, is given a hat of wizardry. Balkanor, being a cleric, is given a wand of pyrotechnics. Oskal is given an immovable rod, and Oxfelt a clockwork amulet. The party then sets up camp out near the Mushroom Islands near the lake, and Lumen copies down some of the spells from the Nomengrod's Wizard spellbook. After a long rest, the party heads back to Phandelver, and they devise a plan to scare Harbin Wester to get their quest reward, which they only get if they return a magic item they don't want, and to try to keep all of their items. They receive the gold reward, and Oxfelt and Balkanor successfully scare Harbin, but they were unable to keep their magical item that they tried to trade for the gold. The party then regroups in the town square on the way to the tavern. And this is where the canonical sessions have ended. Now, as for the connector piece as to what happened to the players at this point, Oxfelt and Balkanor, in attempting to search for answers as to where Oxfelt came from, they decided that they are not finding any answers here. So they decided to continue off adventuring elsewhere in search of answers. And they decide to leave their magical items to help with the dragon fighting with the innkeeper, as they're probably not going to need them on their adventures. Oskal received a messenger from his hometown, summoning him to come home and fulfill holy duties. Being a paladin and all, you have to do that sometimes. Lumen decides that he's going to tag along for Oskal just because he enjoys his new friend and doesn't really have much else that he's planning on doing. So Oskal and Lumen decide to leave their magical weapons with the innkeeper as well. At that point, the innkeeper has taken the magical items, returned them to Harbin Wester, and the party, when we start session 1, will be each given another magical item. Either it might be one of the same or something very similar to match the new party composition. So that is the recap so far of what has happened in A Tale of Two Dragons. I hope you all are excited to see A Tale of Two Dragons and Beyond coming soon. The party will be starting at session 3, right where the previous party left off. So the previous party has completed the first 3 quests of the campaign. The new adventuring party will pick up right there with quests 4 through 6. So if y'all are excited to see A Tale of Two Dragons and Beyond return, and you're looking forward to session 1, then definitely leave a like. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do that. And turn on notifications so that you are aware of when more updates and sessions are posted. I will do my best to let you guys know when we are planning on starting session 1. But in the meantime, keep a lookout. I'll talk to you guys later.